How do I feel now? Do I regret any of it? Not even for a second. Because when a man throws you out of your own home after believing every poisonous lie his daughter whispers, you don't beg. You don't cry. You burn the lies to the ground, one signature at a time. Before I dive into the full story, make sure you like this video and subscribe for more true tales of betrayal and revenge. Every week, I bring you stories that prove one thing: karma always finds its way home. My name is Emily. I'm 49, a project manager who once believed life was finally giving me a second chance at happiness. I'd raised 2 kids mostly on my own after losing my first husband far too young. For years, my world revolved around survival, making sure my children had food, clothes, and some scrap of stability in a house that felt emptier without their father. By the time they were grown, I'd almost convinced myself I'd never remarry. And then, out of nowhere, came Jack. He was charming. A little rough around the edges, but attentive in ways I hadn't felt in years. He made me laugh again. He told me I was beautiful at an age where most women feel invisible. And when he asked me to marry him, I thought, why not? Why not give myself permission to be happy again? What I didn't realize then was that saying yes to Jack also meant saying yes to his daughter Ava. From the very beginning, Ava made it clear she wanted me gone. She was 24, smart, and perfectly capable of living on her own. But she clung to that house like it was sacred ground. "This is my mother's house," she told me the very first week I moved in. "You're just a guest." A guest. That word cut deeper than she knew. I wasn't a guest. I was Jack's wife. But every time I set down a framed photo, cooked dinner, or tried to bring warmth into that cold, echoing house, Ava would swoop in with a sneer. "My mom used to cook lasagna properly," she'd say, pushing her fork through the food I'd spent an hour preparing. "This is edible, I guess." Jack would laugh. A soft chuckle, as if his daughter's cruelty was nothing more than banter. He'd pat her hand, call her sweetheart, and leave me to sit in silence with a burning stomach. I told myself to be patient. She'd lost her mother. I'd lost my husband. Maybe, in time, grief would soften us both. But grief didn't soften Ava. It sharpened her. The lies began small. "She doesn't respect you, Dad. She's only with you for money. She doesn't care about me. She wants to push me out." At first, Jack brushed her off. But I watched the way his eyes started narrowing when he looked at me. The way he started questioning small things: how much I spent at the grocery store, why I stayed late at work, whether I really liked him or just his wallet. It was like Ava had a direct line into his thoughts, whispering poison until it became truth. And then came the night everything broke. "You need to leave, Emily," Jack said, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. Leave? Over what? Over Ava's lies? The word slipped out before I could stop myself. His jaw locked tight. "She's not lying. She's my child. And if you can't get along with her, then maybe this marriage was a mistake." I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at him, really looked, and realized something devastating. He wasn't defending me. He wasn't fighting for me. He was choosing her. My heart felt like it was being ripped in two. But I refused to beg. If he wanted me gone, I'd go. What he didn't know is that while he and Ava celebrated their victory, I was already building mine. See, Ava wasn't the helpless little girl she pretended to be. I'd cleaned that house often enough to know her secrets. I'd seen the unopened bills stuffed in her drawers. The student loan late notices. The maxed-out credit cards. She paraded around in designer clothes and posted glamorous vacations online, but her life was a house of cards, teetering on debt. And Jack? He wasn't as faithful as he pretended either. One of my coworkers spotted him at a hotel with a younger woman. At first, I didn't believe it. But then I noticed the little things, the missing cash, the nights he didn't come home, the sudden generosity with gifts that never reached me. A few quiet checks later, I found the truth: he was funneling money from our joint account to fund his affair. They thought they had me cornered. But I had the receipts. And that's where I'll leave this first part. Because the night I finally walked out of that house, head held high while they smirked in triumph, was the same night I decided they wouldn't just lose me, they would lose everything. Where Emily suffers the fallout of being thrown out, questions her sanity, and slowly starts to piece together her plan for the ultimate revenge. The fallout. The night I left that house, I carried nothing but a suitcase and my dignity. I'll never forget the way Ava stood at the doorway, arms folded, her lips twisted into a satisfied smirk. "Good riddance," she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. And Jack? Jack didn't even meet my eyes. He stared at the floor, as if by avoiding my gaze he could avoid his own guilt. I walked out of that house not as a wife, but as a stranger. But here's the thing about betrayal: what hurts the most isn't the lies. It's the silence. The way someone who once swore to protect you can watch you fall without reaching out a hand. That silence echoed in me long after I left. Sleepless nights. I moved into a small rental apartment across town. Just one bedroom, barely furnished. At night, the walls seemed to close in. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my chest heavy. Was it me? Had I been too harsh with Ava? Did I deserve this? Every cruel word she'd hurled replayed in my head. Houseguest. Gold digger. You'll never be good enough for Dad. And worst of all was Jack's voice, flat and cold: maybe this marriage was a mistake. Some nights, I cried until my pillow was soaked. Other nights, anger replaced the tears. How dare they throw me out of a home I helped build? How dare he accuse me when he was the one sneaking off with another woman? It was a storm of emotions: grief, rage, loneliness, all crashing down at once. But in those sleepless nights, something else was born: resolve. The whisper of revenge. At work, I forced myself to smile. My coworkers noticed my weight loss, the dark circles under my eyes, but I brushed it off. One afternoon, my friend Monica leaned across the table and whispered, "Emily, I saw Jack. He wasn't alone." My stomach nodded. "Where?" "Hotel downtown. Younger woman. Holding hands." They didn't look like coworkers. It wasn't news to me anymore. I'd already suspected, already seen enough missing money to know. But hearing it confirmed lit a spark. I remember walking home that evening, the crisp night air biting my face, and thinking, they think they've won. But they have no idea what's coming. I couldn't undo the betrayal. I couldn't change the past. But I could make sure they paid for every sleepless night, every insult, every lie. The daughter's smirk. It wasn't long before Ava made her move. She sent me a message, bold as ever. "Hope you're enjoying your new place. Dad and I are redecorating the house. Feels good without you here." I stared at the words, my hands trembling. The audacity. But beneath my anger was clarity. Ava thought she had secured her father's loyalty, his home, his money. She had no idea I had the power to rip it all away. And Jack, well, he was too busy with his mistress to notice the storm building. Gathering evidence. I became meticulous. Every receipt Jack had charged to our joint account, I saved. Every suspicious bank withdrawal, I documented. I even hired a private investigator. A quiet man named Harris, who barely spoke above a whisper but had eyes sharper than any hawk. Within weeks, he delivered a thick folder, photos of Jack and his mistress, receipts from dinners, hotels, and even jewelry he'd bought her. I spread the evidence across my dining table, my heart racing. Each photo was like a nail in the coffin of our marriage. But instead of pain, I felt a strange thrill. For the first time in months, I wasn't powerless. The setback. But revenge, like life, doesn't come without obstacles. One evening, as I was leaving work, I spotted Ava waiting outside my office. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her eyes glinting with contempt. "Stalking Dad again?" she sneered. "Pathetic. Just sign the divorce papers already and stop embarrassing yourself." I froze, realizing Jack must have told her something. Or maybe she'd snooped. Ava always had a way of inserting herself where she didn't belong. I clenched my jaw, forcing calm. "One day, Ava, you'll realize lies don't last forever." She laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that sliced through me. "Keep dreaming. Dad will always choose me." Her words burned. But instead of breaking me, they hardened me. Ava wasn't just a spoiled daughter clinging to her father, she was the fuel to my fire. If Jack's betrayal had wounded me, Ava's cruelty kept the wound bleeding. And I wasn't about to let either of them walk away unscarred. The breaking point. The final straw came a week later. I stopped by the old house to pick up a few remaining belongings, clothes, photo albums, little pieces of my past I didn't want to lose. When I walked in, Ava was sitting on the couch, scrolling her phone. She didn't even look up. "You shouldn't be here," she said flatly. "This is my mom's house. Not yours." "My name is still on the deed," I replied quietly, setting my box of belongings near the door. She smirked. "Not for long. Dad says once the divorce is through, you'll get nothing. He promised me that." Something in me snapped. Not a scream, not tears, just a cold, sharp clarity. "You're wrong, Ava," I said, my voice steady. "When this is over, you'll have nothing. Not him. Not this house. Nothing." Her smirk faltered for the first time. And in that flicker of fear, I knew. The tide was turning. Emily has hit rock bottom, endured the insults, and finally gathered enough evidence to fight back, where she and her lawyer pieced together a devastating legal strategy, and where Jack and Ava begin to realize cracks in their perfect little world. The first meeting with my lawyer. The day I stepped into my lawyer's office, something inside me shifted. Her name was Claire. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. The kind of woman who didn't waste time with pleasantries. She gestured for me to sit, then leaned forward, hands clasped. "Emily, tell me everything." And so I did. Every lie. Every insult. Every whispered betrayal. By the time I finished, her pen had filled page after page of notes. When I mentioned Ava, Claire raised a brow. "You said she's 24? "Yes." "And still living at home? Financially dependent?" I nodded. Claire smirked. "Good. That means she has no legal leverage over you. Her behavior may actually strengthen your case, harassment, verbal abuse. Keep documenting it." For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel: hope. The power of paper. Over the next several weeks, Claire and I built the case brick by brick. Receipts of Jack's hotel stays. Bank statements showing money funneled to his mistress. Screenshots of Ava's cruel messages. Even witness statements, neighbors who'd overheard Ava screaming at me through the walls. Each document was a weapon. Each signature, a bullet in the chamber. At night, I would spread the papers across my kitchen table and stare at them. The same way Jack once smirked at me with victory, I now smirked at the arsenal I was assembling. This wasn't just divorce. This was war. The emotional toll. But even warriors bleed. There were nights I collapsed onto the couch, clutching a pillow, my body trembling with exhaustion. Some mornings I could barely drag myself out of bed. I remember once looking in the mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back. Dark circles under her eyes, lines deeper than before, a hardness that hadn't existed a year ago. Was this what revenge cost? Pieces of myself, chipped away? But then I'd think of Ava's sneer. Jack's cold dismissal. And I'd whisper to my reflection, "You're almost there. Hold on." Close call. One afternoon, as I left the courthouse after filing a motion, I saw Jack waiting by his car. He approached me, his expression unreadable. "Emily," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. "Why are you doing this? Can't we just settle quietly?" I stared at him, stunned by his audacity. Settle? You threw me out like trash. You chose lies over me. He flinched, glancing away. Ava's my daughter. She comes first. I felt a bitter laugh escape my throat. And what about your mistress, Jack? Does she come first too? His head snapped up, eyes wide. You. I know everything, I cut in, my voice sharp as glass. And soon, the court will too. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. And oh, how satisfying it was. The daughter's cracks begin to show. A week later, Ava showed up at my apartment. I hadn't given her the address, she must have dug it up somehow. She pounded on the door until I opened it. Her face was flushed, eyes wild. "You're ruining everything," she shouted. I crossed my arms. "Everything? Or just your free ride?" Her voice trembled with fury. "Dad's stressed. He barely sleeps. He says you're trying to take the house." "That's my home." "Correction," I said evenly. "It's our home. My name is still on that deed. And when this is over, you'll see just how much of it is mine." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away, replacing them with venom. "You'll regret this." "No, Ava," I whispered, leaning closer. "You will." She stormed off, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I stood there, my heart pounding, but a small smile tugging at my lips. The cracks were showing. Their confidence was slipping. Final preparations. Claire called me 2 nights before the mediation. "Everything is set," she said. "The evidence is airtight. The property division favors you, alimony is justified by his misconduct, and with the infidelity proof? He doesn't stand a chance." I exhaled shakily. "So this is it." "This is it," she confirmed. Then, softer, "Emily. I've seen many cases. Few clients deserve justice as much as you do. Whatever happens, remember, you've already won by walking away." Her words lodged deep in my chest. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about money, or a house, or legal victories. This was about reclaiming myself. The night before the showdown. I couldn't sleep the night before. I paced the apartment, my mind replaying every insult, every betrayal, every sleepless night. Finally, I sat at the table, staring at the folder of documents one last time. Tomorrow, I would walk into that room not as a discarded wife, not as a victim, but as the storm that would end their world. I whispered to the empty apartment. Tomorrow, they'll see exactly who they tried to destroy. And for the first time in months, I fell asleep smiling. Emily is armed, the legal trap is set, and Jack and Ava's world is about to collapse. The mediation table showdown, their downfall, and Emily's ultimate freedom. The mediation room. The conference room smelled faintly of stale coffee and paper. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making the silence feel even heavier. I sat at one end of the long table, Claire beside me, her files stacked neatly. At the other end sat Jack, looking restless, his suit slightly rumpled as if he'd rushed to put it on. And next to him, Ava. Arms crossed, lips pursed, glaring at me like a child denied candy. The mediator cleared his throat. We're here to discuss terms of dissolution and division of marital property. Let's begin. But my focus wasn't on the mediator. It was on Jack. The man who once held me in his arms, who swore I was his future. Now, all I saw was a stranger who had sold his loyalty to lies. Claire slid a folder across the table. We'll start with financial disclosures. Jack's hand twitched as he opened it. And then, his face drained of color. Inside were pages upon pages of bank statements, credit card charges, and photographs. Photos of him with his mistress. Receipts for hotels. Jewelry. Dinner bills. Money he thought had vanished unnoticed. Ava leaned over, eyes darting across the pages. "Dad, what is this?" His lips moved, but no words came. I leaned forward, my voice calm. "It's everything, Jack. Every lie. Every dollar. Every betrayal." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. The daughter's meltdown. "This isn't fair." Ava suddenly snapped, slamming her hand on the table. "You're twisting everything. Dad, don't sign anything. She's trying to steal from us." Claire arched a brow. "Us?" "Ms. Ava, unless you're legally married to my client, this isn't about you. You don't own this house. You don't pay these bills. You don't get to decide anything here." Ava's face flushed crimson. "That house is my mother's legacy." "No," Claire said coolly. "That house is jointly owned. Emily has legal rights. And your father's misconduct ensures she'll walk away with far more than you imagined." Ava turned to Jack, desperate. "Dad, don't let her do this." But Jack just sat there, sweat beading on his forehead, the weight of reality sinking into his shoulders. For the first time, the great protector of Ava had no words. The pen trembles. The mediator pushed the papers forward. "Mr. Richards, if you agree to these terms, please sign here." Jack's hand shook as he picked up the pen. His eyes darted to mine, searching for mercy. But all he found was resolve. "You tricked me," he whispered, voice hoarse. "No," I said, steady as steel. "You tricked yourself. You chose her poison over my loyalty. You chose lies over truth. This is just the consequence." His jaw clenched. Slowly, painfully, he scrawled his name. Each stroke of the pen sounded louder than the buzzing lights above. When he finished, the mediator slid the papers toward me. I signed swiftly, my hand firm. Final. Ava stared at the documents as though they were a death sentence. In many ways, they were. Walking away. When the session ended, I gathered my things calmly, while Jack and Ava sat stunned in their seats. I stood, smoothing my jacket, and looked directly at Ava. "You said I'd regret this. But look at you. Who's regretting now?" Her mouth opened, but no words came. I walked out of that room lighter than I had in years. Not just because of the papers, not just because of the money or the house. But because I had reclaimed the dignity they tried to strip from me. The dominoes fall. It didn't take long for their world to collapse. A month later, word spread that Jack's mistress had drained his bank account and vanished. Thousands gone overnight. He'd been played, the same way he tried to play me. Ava, stripped of her father's financial safety net, was drowning in debt. Creditors called. Late notices piled up. Eventually, she was forced to move into a dingy apartment across town. Neighbors whispered. Friends distanced themselves. Their once perfect image was in ruins. And me? I was free. The new beginning. I moved into a sunny townhouse near my daughter. The walls were painted a soft cream, the windows wide and welcoming. The first morning I woke there, sunlight streaming across my bed, I realized I could breathe again. No more insults. No more betrayals. No more chains. Just peace. I filled my days with small joys, gardening, coffee with friends, evening walks with my daughter. Things I had once taken for granted but now cherished with every heartbeat. Reflection. People sometimes ask me, do you regret it? Do you regret tearing their world apart? And my answer is always the same. Not one bit. Because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet satisfaction of knowing the lies that tried to break you became the very proof that set you free. Jack and Ava built their kingdom on deceit. I simply let the walls collapse. And as I sit here now, surrounded by real love, real family, and peace, I know this. Revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about reclaiming myself. And I did. So, what do you think? Did Emily go too far? Or did Jack and Ava deserve every ounce of fallout that came their way? If you've ever been underestimated, lied to, or cast aside, you know exactly how sweet it feels when truth finally levels the playing field. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell. We've got more tales of betrayal, justice, and cold revenge waiting for you. Until next time, remember. Sometimes the lies that break you become the truth that sets you free.